Welcome back to session 4 of this unit. Still on the theories, concepts, procedures, and legal framework of collective bargaining, specifically in Ghana context. So here we are going to look at the legal framework of collective bargaining in Ghana. The legal framework of collective bargaining in Ghana. So at the end of this session, we should be able to explain the legal framework for collective bargaining in Ghana. Understand what is meant by collective agreement. Describe collective bargaining certificate, how it looks like. The issues in terms of getting. So it is our assignment to go and look at some of the things that need to be satisfied, or one needs to possess for the person to be issued a collective bargaining certificate when we have not been able to get a debt. So here it is just the craft. So please make sure you read about the collective bargaining certificate extensively. You may not be able to capture all the issues in collective bargaining here. Okay. So collective bargaining framework. So in countries where the social partners are strong and traditions of collective bargaining are well established, rules and procedures for collective bargaining may be the outcome of an agreement between national employers, confederations, and the trade union confederation. So this is a framework that actually helps to establish some form of agreement between national employers confederation and the trade union confederation. So in other words, somebody will say it's like a paradigm that helps to establish some form of agreement between the National Employers Federation and the Trade Union Federation. While it is preferable for the rules and procedures for the collective bargaining to establish through an agreement between the social partners, national conditions may make this difficult. So there are certain conditions, or there are certain factors that are beyond the control of the parties involved. And these are the national conditions, the state conditions, that sometimes make certain collective bargaining ineffective or impossible. So continuing, we are saying that the collective bargaining framework needs to give the negotiating parties full latitude to decide the subject they wish to include on their bargaining agenda. So the framework is like a guide that actually tells them the kind of ingredients or the parties' full latitude in terms of their capacity, what they can actually decide to be the subject matter they wish to include in their bargaining agenda. And again, if collective bargaining is to be effective, then it means that the social partners and the public authorities will need to address a number of procedural issues. So if these procedural issues are not addressed, it means that it makes the collective bargaining agenda ineffective one way or the other, because it is the responsibility of the collective bargaining parties to ensure that the social partners, or for example, the social partners or the public authorities have addressed some of these procedural issues. Other than that, they can actually initiate the negotiation, but it won't work. And again, we are saying that doing so can facilitate voluntary negotiation and promote collective bargaining. And depending on the level at which the parties wish to bargain, arrangements may be ad hoc or occur more formal institutions. Now, the overview of the Labour Act 2003, Act 651 on collective bargaining. So we are looking at what actually the Labour Act stipulates, specify in terms of collective bargaining. And some of these are outlined, and we are saying that some of these things have been amended over time. So one has to do with the Industrial Relations Act 1965, Act 299. The Industrial Relations Act 1965, subject to amendment, Decree 1967, the NLCD 189, the Industrial Relations Amendment Decree 1972, the NLCD 22, the Labour Decree of 1967, NLCD 175. And there are other laws scattered in various pieces of legislation that govern industrial relations within the country. Now, let's look at the function of this Labour Act. So it defends workers against exploitation and health hazard. So the Labor Act were actually stipulated or established or in other words formed or planned in order to ensure that the workers are not exploited and their health hazard are also the of concern to employers. It ensures basically the minimum acceptance level of working condition, including wages. So the Labor Act actually tells the minimum amount of wage that every labor is supposed to get, regardless. So that is the minimum. So if an employer, there is no way you can pay below the minimum wage that has been set by the Labor Act. And again, it regulates relations between the parties by establishing rules for the conduct of collective bargaining and the establishment of labor disputes. Now, collective agreement. So collective bargaining has been expatiated previously over the course of our previous lecture. Now, collective agreement. So if you look at the section 96 of the Labor Act, subject to the provisions of this act, a collective agreement relates to the terms and conditions of employment of workers and may be included between one or more trade unions on one hand and representatives of one or more employees or employers, employers organization on the other hand. So it's basically the agreement that relates to the terms and conditions of unemployment of workers. That is the agreement. So when the agreement, so after the collective, that is like the result or the outcome of the collective bargaining is what? Collective agreement. So the outcome of the collective bargaining agenda is collective agreement. And this is what is signed by the various representatives of whether the employers organization, employees organization, and the government, of which the government serves as a third party or a witness to that particular agreement. And the content of the collective agreement. One, the class or category of workers to which it relates. So there are certain collective agreements that relate to certain specific work. In terms of the hour, in terms of everything. Then the conditions of work, including the hours of work, the rest period, the meal breaks, annual leave, occupational health and safety, the remuneration and the methods of calculating the remuneration of the worker, period of probation and condition of probation, the period of probation and condition of probation. So the probation basically talk about the point at which an employer can be put on hold before his actual salary is being given to him. So that is the probation that we are talking about. Then the period of notice of determination of employment, transfer, and discipline. Then the period of notice of determination of employment, transfer, and discipline. Now, collective bargaining certificate. So before you can actually embark on that, you are given a certificate, and that is being spelled out by the section 99 of section 9999, of the Labor Act 2003. And it states that a trade union shall make an application to the chief labor officer for a certificate appointment that trade union as the appropriate representative to conduct negotiation on behalf of the class of workers specified in the collective bargaining certificate with the employers of the workers. So as simple as that. Now the variations or the variation of certificate. So section 100, at the time after the issue of a certificate, under section 99, the chief labor officer may, after consultation with the trade union, name in the certificate an appropriate to issues and amounts of workers, specify the certificate and the reference in this act to a certificate issued under section 99 shall be deemed to include such a certificate as amended under this particular. So that is it. So basically, these are some of the issues you need to be mindful of in terms of the certificate, the agreement, all that. Thank you very much.